think that there was a massive compromise in terms of Justin's original vision for the film. Blake smelled his kindness, mistook it for weakness, and tried to take advantage and take power.
Wrestled control of the film.
I think she tried to, yes.
Did she succeed in the end?
Probably.
This is one of the most detailed breakdowns you'll hear of what the court documents in the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni case actually contain. Rather than relying on press releases, PR campaigns, or attorney statements, this analysis focuses on the official court record itself. According to those who have reviewed the unsealed filings, the documents present a far more complex picture than the narrative that dominated much of the early media coverage. Critics of Blake Lively's legal strategy argue that the records suggest she sought a significant degree of control over It Ends With Us, including creative decisions, on-screen credit, and the overall public narrative surrounding the project. They contend that when those objectives were not achieved through the usual collaborative production process, the dispute evolved into a broader legal and public relations battle designed to reshape public perception in her favor. Supporters of this interpretation point to the unsealed court filings, which remain publicly available for anyone to examine firsthand. Among the journalists who reviewed the extensive record was James Vituska of the Daily Mail, who reported on thousands of pages of documents and highlighted several key allegations contained within them. One of the most widely discussed claims, according to his reporting, was that the documentary evidence appeared to suggest the creation of a false paper trail intended to support a particular narrative. However, it is essential to emphasize that this remains an allegation drawn from the filings and media reporting. It has not been conclusively established by a court, and the underlying claims have not been finally adjudicated.
And I find it very hard to believe the allegations against him. And considering his mission statement about the film and him genuinely pitching that he was doing this film to help young women, I just find it hard to believe the allegations.
Pattern of concern about Justin Baldoni's behavior earlier than the available record appears to support. Among the most discussed claims is an email chain involving Ryan Reynolds. According to reports based on the unsealed filings, the email appeared to show Reynolds already aware of and commenting on Baldoni's alleged behavior in a manner that would reinforce Blake Lively's legal narrative. However, the reporting further alleged that Reynolds did not originate the communication attributed to him. These claims remain disputed, and the public record does not definitively establish whether the issue resulted from deliberate fabrication, an internal miscommunication, a misunderstanding of the documents, or another explanation. Blake Lively's legal team has not publicly provided a detailed account of the email chain's origin, and because the case concluded before a full trial, the matter was never thoroughly examined through discovery or cross-examination. More broadly, critics argue that the court record reflects a pattern in which certain claims evolved or were revised as additional evidence emerged that challenged the original narrative. This interpretation has drawn sustained attention from legal commentators and others closely following the case, although it remains an interpretation of the available record rather than a judicial finding. One aspect that has received particular focus is the controversy surrounding the dance scene and the production dailies. Unlike many of the broader allegations, this portion of the dispute relies heavily on visual production footage and contemporaneous materials that are publicly available, making it one of the most concrete and extensively documented aspects of the case.
6. I'm not going to speculate as to Miss Lively's motivations for mentioning me in the complaint. Needless to say, my experience working with her is very different than the one she described in her.
In Blake Lively's original complaint, she alleged that Justin Baldoni improvised physical intimacy during the filming of a scene that, according to the complaint, was being recorded without synchronized audio. One of the key allegations was that Baldoni whispered that she smelled good during the scene, with the complaint suggesting this occurred in a setting where there would be no audio record of the exchange. That allegation formed a significant part of the complaint's characterization of the interaction as inappropriate and was presented as supporting the broader claims regarding Baldoni's conduct on set. These assertions originated from Lively's legal complaint and were contested by Baldoni's side.
It could drag on for a month, warned the judge who will preside over the case. Judge Louis Lehman told jurors that the case between the co-stars of the movie It Ends With Us could be in court for 3 to 4 weeks. After its May 8th, of her 13 claims are not making it to trial. All of the claims that she made about harassment, really, it's just...
Justin Baldoni later released raw production dailies from the filming of the scene at issue. According to Baldoni and his supporters, the footage presents a different account from the one described in Blake Lively's original complaint. The video shows Baldoni discussing the scene with Lively beforehand, explaining that he planned to remove his hat, lean toward her, and attempt a kiss as part of the performance. In the released footage, Lively appears relaxed and engaged in the discussion, and the interaction proceeds without any obvious signs of visible distress or surprise. The release material also included synchronized audio, contrary to the original complaint's suggestion that no such recording existed. After the footage became public, Lively's legal team amended portions of the complaint to clarify how the presence of recorded audio was described. Critics argued that this amendment reflected a broader pattern they believed existed throughout the case, contending that allegations were revised as new evidence emerged. Lively's legal team, however, maintained that such amendments are a routine part of litigation, reflecting the normal process of refining legal pleadings as additional information becomes available. Because the case concluded before trial, neither interpretation was fully tested through witness testimony or cross-examination. The existence of body microphone recordings became another significant point of discussion. Baldoni wore a wireless microphone during portions of production, a common practice used to capture dialogue and production audio. As a result, many interactions referenced in the complaint were preserved on audio and video. Supporters of Baldoni argue that these recordings depict collaborative conversations between a director and lead actress rather than the inappropriate conduct alleged in the complaint. They contend that the released dailies and audio do not visibly support several of the specific allegations, while Lively's supporters maintain that isolated footage does not necessarily capture the full context of workplace interactions. Since the litigation ended in settlement before a trial on the merits, no court ultimately weighed this evidence or determined which interpretation was more persuasive. Separate from the legal dispute, the It Ends With Us promotional campaign became a major source of public debate. During the film's press tour, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds faced criticism from some viewers over the tone and focus of their publicity appearances. Commentators questioned the decision to promote Lively's hair care brand while marketing a film centered on domestic violence, arguing that the messaging appeared out of step with the film's subject matter. At the same time, Justin Baldoni was noticeably absent from several high-profile promotional events, fueling speculation about tensions behind the scenes. Author Colleen Hoover, whose novel inspired the film, participated in parts of the promotional campaign but largely refrained from commenting publicly on the reported conflict. For some observers, the combination of marketing decisions, Baldoni's limited visibility, and the public response marked the point at which opinions surrounding the controversy began to shift, increasing scrutiny of the broader narrative presented by both sides.
Of evidence that she has, to me, so far, only shows the lengths that her and Ryan were willing to go to completely destroy Wayfair and take over their...
Judge revealed that potential jurors will be asked if they would have a problem giving Lively $0.
Many commentators who have analyzed the case publicly have identified the It Ends With Us press tour as a pivotal moment in understanding the broader timeline. Their theory, emphasized as a theory rather than an established fact, is that the negative public reaction to the promotional campaign created a strong incentive to redirect public attention. Critics argue that, as questions mounted about Blake Lively's marketing choices, including the promotion of her hair care brand and alcoholic beverages alongside a film centered on domestic violence, the focus of the public conversation shifted. According to this interpretation, reframing the discussion around allegations against Justin Baldoni had the strategic effect of moving attention away from criticism of the press tour and toward a narrative in which Lively was viewed primarily as the victim rather than the subject of public scrutiny. Supporters of this interpretation point to the documented sequence of events as the basis for their argument. They note that criticism of the press tour was followed by an evolving public conversation, the filing and expansion of legal claims, and an increasingly aggressive public relations battle surrounding Baldoni. Whether this sequence reflects a deliberate and carefully coordinated strategy, or simply the natural evolution of crisis management during a highly public dispute, remains unresolved. The court filings themselves establish the chronology of events, but they do not determine the motivations behind them. As a result, while many PR professionals and legal observers have argued that the timeline is significant and deserving of scrutiny, the existence of a chronological sequence alone does not establish causation, and the underlying strategic intent remains a matter of interpretation rather than a judicial finding.
That was enough drama. Check this out. TV and Movie Addict is reporting that more will be unsealed. The judge said he will unseal filings, suggest the actress plans to invoke the widely reported defamation battle between Depp v. Heard as part of her strategy against Justin Baldoni. Blake argues she faced a similar online pylon fueled by
Internal Sony communications that later became part of the court record have received significant attention because they offer insight into how studio executives were privately assessing the situation during the It Ends With Us press tour. According to reporting on the unsealed documents, some executives expressed sharp criticism of aspects of Blake Lively's promotional approach in private communications, using language that contrasted noticeably with the studio's public statements of support. Observers have pointed to this contrast as an example of the difference between internal corporate discussions and external messaging during a high-profile controversy. While the private communications reveal candid assessments from individual executives, the studio's public position remained supportive throughout that period. A broader interpretation advanced by some legal commentators and critics is that the dispute extended beyond isolated workplace disagreements and centered on questions of creative influence and control. Lively entered the project not only as its lead actress, but also with a producer credit and substantial commercial influence. The unsealed communications and other materials in the record suggest there were ongoing discussions about creative decisions, editing, marketing, and the overall direction of the film. Critics argue that these documents, viewed collectively, support the theory that Lively sought a greater role in shaping both the creative and commercial future of It Ends With Us, while Baldoni resisted what they characterize as an expansion of her influence. According to this interpretation, the resulting conflict eventually developed into the legal dispute and accompanying public relations battle. Lively, however, has consistently maintained through her attorneys and public statements that she raised legitimate workplace concerns through appropriate channels and that her lawsuit was filed in response to what she viewed as retaliation, rather than as a strategic effort to gain leverage over the production. It is also important to distinguish between the court's procedural rulings and broader factual conclusions. The dismissal of many of Lively's claims reflected the court's determination that those claims did not satisfy the applicable legal standards at that stage of the litigation. That outcome did not constitute a finding that Lively knowingly fabricated her allegations or acted with malice. Likewise, it did not amount to a judicial determination that Baldoni's account was entirely correct. Because the litigation concluded before a full trial on the merits, many factual disputes remained unresolved and were never subjected to cross-examination or final judicial findings. In the aftermath of the dispute, Baldoni adopted a notably restrained public posture. Outside of releasing selected evidence and issuing occasional statements through his legal team, he generally allowed court filings and documentary materials to speak for themselves rather than engaging in an extended public relations campaign. Many observers believe that approach benefited his public image, particularly as additional documents became public, while others caution that public perception and legal outcomes are distinct matters. Regardless, the contrasting communication strategies employed by both sides became one of the defining features of the controversy and continue to shape public discussion of the case.